Consent in medical practice. It's very important topic as per your short-term goal as well as long-term goal. Many times short note or long question has been asked on a consent. So for your exam purpose, it's very important. And second, consent is an integral part of a medical practice. So consent is very important during your medical practice. So in today's lecture, we are going to learn about the definition of consent, what are the types of consent, what are the ingredients of the consent, and what are the circumstances where the consent is needed. So the consent is free and voluntary agreement, approval of the act. So these two words are very important, that is free and voluntary act. So that is consent. So consent is free and voluntary agreement, approval or permission for compliance of some act. So you should remember these words, free and voluntary. What is that? Free and voluntary, either it is agreement or it's approval or permission. For what? For doing some act. So have you understood the definition of consent? So consent is free and voluntary agreement, approval or permission for compliance of some act. As already I have told you that it is very important and an integral part of the medical practice. Why? Because in last lecture we have seen what is negligence, but one of the best defense of the negligence is the consent. If the consent has been taken by a doctor and it is proved in a court, then doctor don't get a punishment about the negligence. So it is the best defense of the negligence cases. And remember one word, examining or doing any procedure without consent is a criminal act. So without consent, if you are doing any procedure or giving treatment, then from the sight of a court, you are criminal. So without consent examining any patient is the crime. So why consent is important? Because it is the best defense of a registered medical practice in negligence cases. And why? Because without consent, doing any operation, doing any procedure, it is a criminal act. So what are the types of consent? Consent mainly divided into two, implied consent and express consent. And the third is blanket consent, but don't tell because it is the negative part. So what is implied consent? Implied consent, that there is the action of another person is implying that he has or she has given the consent, is known as an implied consent. What is the example of an implied consent? If any patient comes to the OPD and tells his signs and symptoms to the doctor, then it is considered that he has given implied consent for the clinical examination of the doctor and the further treatment. That is known as an implied consent. So what is implied consent? The action of another person. For our cases, that patient comes to the OPD, tells the signs and symptoms, so he has given implied consent to further clinical examination and the treatment, and that is known as an implied consent. Is it clear? So that is about the implied consent. Second consent is known as express consent, and it is again subdivided into verbal and written. Express, the word that the patient has given is expression, either verbally or by written, it is known as a express consent. So if there is any procedure, operation, clinical examination, if the patient has given verbally the consent, then it is known as a verbal consent. And if it is he or she has given in a written, it is known as a written consent. So it's the common sense that always you prefer which type of consent, verbal or written? You should prefer consent. Why? Because if the negligence case goes to the court, what courts require? Evidence. Verbal consent doesn't have any evidence. Unless you have recorded on your mobile or other thing, the consent, then it becomes evidence. Otherwise, verbal consent doesn't stand in a court. So, you should always take a written consent. So, written consent is a good for your further defense, as well as it remains for a long term in a file of a patient. So, always prefer to take a written consent. Another consent, and most of the previously it is usually this consent has been used. That consent is known as a blanket consent. But this consent is invalid in a court. Court want that each time for each procedure you have to take a separate consent. Previously, whenever the patient gets admitted, he has to sign, and the consent is of only 2 lines. What are these lines? These are I authorize so and so to carry out any test, procedure, surgery in the course of my treatment. So within 1 line, you have taken that whatever you want, you can do on my body. But this consent is not at all valid in a court. And this consent is known as a blanket consent. During your further practice, medical practice, don't take this blanket consent. It is actually criminal act. So each procedure, for if you want to do venesection, take a separate consent of a venesection. After that, you need that the patient is needing blood transfusion, again take a separate consent of a blood transfusion. After that, if you want to do the operation on that patient, then again take another consent. So each procedure, each act of you have to take a separate consent. Don't take this consent in a single line. What is that? I authorize so and so to carry out any test, procedure, surgery in course of my treatment. So it is very vague and it doesn't have any value in a court. So it is invalid in a court. Is it clear? So blanket consent is a viva question. So examiner asks what is blanket consent, and you should remember that in your practice you should not take a blanket consent. You should always prefer to take a written express consent. Up till now clear? What is implied consent, what is express consent, and the types of express consent, verbal, written, and what is blanket consent. Is it clear? Can I proceed? Yes? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, what are the essential ingredients of the consent? Again, definition. In definition, we have already enumerated this word. So, consent should be given directly and personally to the person who needs it. It should be taken or given directly and personally. Second word is very important, voluntarily. There is no burden, no fear. And then only this consent becomes valid. So consent should be voluntary. And after understanding the nature, quality, and consequences of the act for which it is given. So these 3 things should be there, and then only the consent become valid. What are these 3 things? Directly and personally to the person who needs it. Second, should be voluntarily. and after understanding nature and quality of the consequences of the act for what the consent is given. Next, when the consent is invalid when it is taken or given in a fear of injury. So you must have learned in definition of the rape that if the consent, that girl has given consent in a fear of causing injury to the body of her or to whom or her relative to whom she is interested. So the consent given in a fear, it is again invalid. Misconception of the facts, that that patient has not understood about that and he has misconceived, then the consent becomes invalid. So you should always take consent in a local language or mother tongue of a patient. So in Maharashtra, you should always take the patient consent in Marathi, so that there is no misconception of the fact. And the third, the consent given by insane or intoxicated person who is unable to understand the nature and consequences of the act. That is section 19 IPC. So these are the three things where the consent is invalid, that is fear of injury, misconception of facts given by insane or intoxicated person who is unable to understand nature and consequences of the act. Most important consent is known as an informed consent. It is the part of a written express consent or express written consent. So that is known as a informed consent. What is informed consent? What are the ingredients of the informed consent? First, adequate disclosure of the information. Second, his or her freedom of choice. Third, his or her understanding. And fourth, his or her capacity to make the decision. So informed consent consists of these ingredients. So adequate disclosure means what? That the doctor should take in a confidence to the patient, tell him that after examination, after seeing his reports, he came to the so and so diagnosis. For that diagnosis, there are the different types of the treatment. Tell what are the pros and cons of each treatment, and let the patient to make a choice of a given treatment. So he has to tell all the signs and symptoms, lab reports, his diagnosis, further treatment. If the treatment is available in different ways, tell pros and cons of each treatment, and let the patient decide which treatment he has to choose. Then third thing is that his or her understanding. Say, for that you should always speak in a patient's local language. Don't use the big medical words. So like that, for spleen in local language, they call as a panthri. Like this, you have to use the local language word. So the patient should get the understanding about the procedure and his or her capacity to make a decision. Or if he is with his relative, his parents, then he has to take the consent. Patient can discuss with his or her relative, and afterwards he or she can make decision. Is it clear? So the informed consent is the adequate disclosure of information, freedom of choice, understanding, and capacity to make the decision. Disclose the information means what? I already told that doctor has to tell clinical findings, diagnosis, treatment, different reports, risk or benefit of a treatment, and alternative treatment. So that is the disclosed information. So in an informed consent, this is very important that the patient has to tell all the things related to the clinical findings, treatment, risk or benefits of a treatment, and alternative treatment. So in an informed consent, he has to disclose all these things. And after that, he has to take a signature of patient, signature of a witness, then that consent becomes the valid. Is it clear up till now? Have understood? So what are the circumstances where consent is needed? All the cases where you feel that this medical examination needs consent, especially if male doctor is there and he want to check the private part of a female, then he has to take her consent, as well as if a male doctor is there, he has to take another precaution that some female attendant should be there. Second, investigation and treatment beyond the usual procedure. For example, if there is venesection, you know that there is risk. In that case, take a separate consent of a venesection, or if you want to give a blood transfusion, again take a separate consent for a blood transfusion, because you know that with a blood transfusion there may be anaphylactic reaction can occur. So before giving blood transfusion, you have to take a consent. Before examination of any medical legal cases, you have to take the consent. Again, I already explained examination of victim of a sexual assault. In this case, you have to take a victim's consent. If you are not taking victim's consent, you are not allowed to do the examination of a victim at all. If she doesn't willing to give the consent, then you have to take in a written that she is not willing to give the consent and take her signature or thumb impression. So for a victim cases, you have to take a consent of that victim. And another precaution for a male doctor, he should examine that victim in presence of a female attendee. Fourth, in accused cases, if you have taken consent, well and good. But if accused doesn't give consent, you can examine by using a force with the help of a police inspector, not below the rank of a sub-inspector. Understood? So in an accused case, consent usually given well and good. But if is not giving, the police officer can use a force for the examination of an accused. But for a victim cases, he has to take the consent of a victim. We have learned about privileged communication, that secret information of the patient should not be divulged without his or her consent, except that of privileged communication, where he or she is suffering from a sexual transmitted diseases, communicable diseases, or if a court orders. These are the different circumstances where privileged communication is applied. In that cases, he can tell the authority without the consent of the patient. But without consent of a patient, he cannot divulge any secret of a patient to the community. Next, whenever the registered medical practitioner feels that it is necessary that he should take the consent, he has to take the consent. Consent is invalid in a criminal act. For example, doing criminal abortion. Even if the patient has given after 20 weeks, it's not valid at all. It becomes a criminal act. Or if the patient wants to do the sex determination, he has or she has given the consent, but it's the contradictory to the law. It is the criminal act. So consent of a criminal act, it is invalid at all. Only husband or wife consent is required. But if there is risk of impotency or developing infertility, then you have to take the consent of both husband and wife. Usually for the small other purposes, the only consent of a husband or wife is required. But whenever you feel that with this procedure there may be the impotency or infertility in female, in that cases you have to take consent of both, that husband as well as wife. Patient can not be detained against his will in a hospital. If patient is admitted but he doesn't want, you want to go to home, but the treatment is required, but he doesn't want, you cannot detain. Then in that case you have to take in a return that he is not willing to stay and he is going to home against medical advice. Understood? So for that, against medical advice is very important one, and take a signature of that patient as well as that of relative. So without patient's will, you cannot detain the patient in a hospital. If you want to go, then take a precaution. Take in return that you want to go home against medical advice and take signature of him or her and the relative. Consent of guardian is required below child is 12 years for any examination or procedure. In 87 IPC, if the first, patient cannot be detained against his or her will. Second, consent of a guardian is required if the child is below 12 years. So, if the person is above 18 years of the age, can give the consent for the suffering any harm or that act can cause the death. For example, for the operation, 18 years, above 18 years of the age, the person can give the consent. 88 IPC, that whenever that person is unable to give the consent, is in that condition, then a relative with him can give the consent in a good faith. In 87 IPC, there is that person individually gives the consent. But at 88 IPC, if the another person has given the consent in a good faith word is very important, and with this act, there may cause a damage or death to the patient. So what is the difference between 87 and 88? 87, here that individual gives the consent, and in 88, the another individual gives the consent in a good faith to save the life of that person. And here that individual not unable to, if for example, if the accident has occurred and that patient is in coma, in that case is not able to give the consent, in that case the relative or accompanied person can give the consent for the treatment to save his or her life. Is it clear? Same thing. On a person unable to the consent in emergency condition, consent necessary to prepare report of intoxicated person. Means the person has taken alcohol and he has brought to the casualty. In that case, if he is in that condition, if he can give the consent, consent is taken. But he is in a state of so intoxicated, he doesn't know what he is doing. In that case, the person accompanying him, you can take a consent of that person. No one is with him. In that case, for a good faith, you can start the treatment, prepare your medical legal report, but don't submit that medical report to the police officer. You can submit it after when the patient comes or becomes conscious and able to give the consent. At that time, you should tell him that at the time of the admission, you were intoxicated, you are not able to give the consent. So according to the rule, I have examined and made my report, but now you became a conscious and able to understand what I am saying. Now I have prepared this report and I have to give to the police officer with this consent that can be given. But it is for if that person has not done any criminal act. If that alcohol or intoxicated person has done the criminal act, no consent is required at all. You prepare your report and give to the police station. But that intoxicated person has not done any criminal act. In that case, you have to wait till he becomes conscious and able to give the consent, at that time you can give the consent. You can take the consent. Is it clear? Next is the for the greater interest of the community. For example, now this COVID-19 outbreak is there. If any patient or any person becomes corona positive, then what authority is doing? He is doing or making him quarantine without his or her consent. So it's the compulsory. For what? For the greater interest of the community. So that is about the consent. Adult can give the consent for transplantation of organ. So for screen transplantation, for liver transplantation, for kidney transplantation, when the person can give 18 years of the above person can give the consent to take his organ for the organ transplantation. Is it clear? Then if the person has given consent during his livelihood that after his death the organ can be donated, for example cornea or liver, kidney, even if he has given the consent for the removal of that, but after the death the body, the owner of the body is the legal heir, his son or daughter, and then even if he has given the consent during the livelihood, you cannot take the organ without the consent of the legal heir. Is it clear? So legal heir consent must be there while removing the organs from the dead body. Live patient, he can give the consent, but after the death, if he has given that thing that he want to donate so and so organ, but after the death the owner of the body is legal heir, that is son, daughter or another relative, then you have to take the consent of a legal heir, and after the legal heir's consent only you can remove or take the organ from the dead body for the transplantation purpose. Is it clear? Then I already told that there are three types of the postmortem. One is medico-legal postmortem, second is clinical postmortem, third is the anatomical postmortem. And for the clinical postmortem, it is only for the academic purpose. What? To know the cause of death. The patient is admitted in the hospital and the physician has not come to the diagnosis and patient has died. For the scientific purposes, what is the reason? For that only, for that purpose only, the clinical postmortem is done. For what purpose? Only cause of death. Why the death has occurred. And for this, the clinical postmortem is required. And for the clinical postmortem, the consent of a legal heir is required. So what are the two circumstances where legal heir consent? When you want to remove the organ from the dead body for the organ transplantation purpose, and second, for the clinical postmortem examination, the consent of a legal heir is required. Is it clear up till now? Am I audible? Yes, Saran?
Yes, sir.
Up till now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So, in today's lecture, what we have learned? That the definition of consent. Consent is free and voluntarily agreement, approval or permission for compliance of some act. It is the best defense of RMP. What are the types? Implied consent, express consent, verbal and written. You should never take a blanket consent during your medical practice. What are the essential ingredients of the consent? Should be directly and personally given. It should be voluntary, and after understanding all the facts, nature, quality, consequence of the act. When it becomes invalid, after fear of injury, misconception of facts, or given by insane or intoxicated person. Important consent is the informed consent, and it is the express written consent, and express written consent, in that is the informed consent. What are the ingredients of the informed consent? Adequate disclosure, freedom of choice to the patient after understanding all the facts, and capacity of his or her to give the decision. What is disclosed information? That you have to tell all the clinical findings, treatment, risk or benefits, and alternative treatment. That is all the disclosure of the information. Circumstances, whenever you feel, take the consent. Any investigation or procedure, take a separate consent. Before examination of medical legal cases, before examination of victim, always take a consent. In accused cases, if it is, you see, he has given, well and good. Otherwise, you can examine the patient, examine accused without the consent, or in a circumstances, the police officer can use a moderate force for the examination. Also, don't divulge the secret except that of privileged communication. Whenever there are Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So after this, I want to show you one video. So how the consent, ideal consent should be taken. So in usual cases, only consent of a husband or wife is required. But if there is risk of developing impotency or infertility, then the consent of both wife and husband is required. Again, patient not detained against his or her will. Take a consent of a guardian, child below 12 years. 18 years of the above 18 years can give consent to suffer any harm. Then another person can give the consent for a good faith to save the person's life. Unable to, in emergency condition, in a good faith, doctor can start the treatment. In intoxication required. So consent of a legal heir is required to remove the organ from a dead body. And in a clinical postmortem, consent of a legal heir is required. Without that, you cannot do the clinical postmortem. For medical legal postmortem, no consent is required, because medical postmortem is done for the cause of death, manner of death, time since death, and it is usually for the word in a unnatural deaths like a suicidal, homicidal, and accidental. But clinical postmortem is only to know the cause of death and for the academic purpose, and for that the consent of a legal heir is required. Is it clear? Is it clear? Is it clear? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Now see how the good consent is taken. See this video.